Well, good evening and welcome to another in our TalkSports, where we meet with the movers and shakers of sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, and administrators past and present. Well, this evening we have a special guest as announced last week. We'll be, dabbling in and between some local, some regional, some international, for the past few weeks. We had some very interesting guests, and this week, no doubt, one who will be adding to the Vault, Sporting Vault, is no other than Mr. Ali Debellotte. Very familiar name, no doubt, one that is very synonymous with sports in Grenada. And Mr. Ali Debellotte has been around for quite a while in terms of sports. The name very synonymous with football, but you will be interested to know that Ali has not been involved only in football. And joining us live from the beautiful Spice Isle in Grenada is Mr. Ali Debellotte. As I say, good evening to you, Ali.
Well, good evening, and
Yes, Ali.
Seems as if we have lost contact.
No, I hear you loud and clear, Ali. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So good evening, and thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Well, it's nice having you, Ali. And as I indicated, Ali Debellotte, very synonymous with football over the years, many decades to be exact. And now we have Ali on our program, and we'll be hearing from Ali over the next hour as we delve into the lives and times of Ali Debellotte, his involvement in sports. Ali, probably you'll have to start telling us when you actually got involved in sports, obviously as a schoolboy. And that will be probably many moons ago.
Yeah, well, you see, I sported my jersey to guide the trans unit. Really, that's what I was like about 1984. We formed this club in Belmont, and we played cricket and football, part in athletics and whatnot. And from that time, really, I started to coach and play. So I was coach and player of both the cricket and football team of Champions. And that was 1974. That was the start.
Whoa. And you said it was trans unit, right?
Yep, yeah, and the name came from a generator that was in they had blackout.
Right.
The generator had this trans unit on it. We took the name. I up to date guide one day how that name came back.
Ali, that name was along with the Atoms and the Dauntless and these clubs and things like that, so?
Yeah, in fact, I was on the paper of for Chancellor, was very common. It's a village team, a local team. That same year, I also played for Autumn in the every football league.
Okay. Ali, but, it's interesting because people know Ali Debellotte as around football, whether as a past player for those who knew, or for those current that knew as a former national coach. And national in a sense is not just men, but also women's football. But let us go back into time, Ali. Ali Debellotte as a sportsman. What are some of the sports you were involved in as a little boy growing up, schoolboy, and in some instances competitively?
Well, as I said, I really got onto the scene seriously in 74. And you know that period at that time was a sort of crisis. And so it was in 1995 when I went back to school in 95. I was then appointed coach of the football team. I was an athlete, and as you said, I don't think many people know that I actually won the 100, the 200, 60 meter, and second in the 4 in TBSS sports in 1995. Yeah, so good athlete. TBSS always a good athlete.
Right.
And, so to win all these events, I also played at the badminton, the there's guys that play table tennis, that this is Spanish club, which I can compete with him in a sort of football scenario. So to beat Jason, you have to be playing. I also play a bit of lawn tennis, but cricket and football was the main two sports, and I played both at the local level, youth and senior at the national level. Didn't actually play a senior match at football, but was selected on the squad. Right, so 95 was a sort of breakaway year for me. In fact, I only played 3 local games before I played for the senior national cricket team. And then the following year, I skipper the youth team to the Grenada Islands cricket competition. In that time, I was also a national youth footballer.
You mentioned badminton by any means?
Yeah, I played a lot of badminton with CSA. The guys, Jason is one of them, of course. And you have people like Ambrose, Phillips, and
right.
Yeah, and these guys, Meadow, and these guys come down there, and it was really fun. Once you people come to CSA, they didn't really take much part in it. But I played quite a few years by the time. We never really played in a competition on our afternoon one, get a nice win.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But Ali, how competitive it was, for you growing up, playing, and I assume in those days, a lot of club sports to be exact. How competitive it was during those days?
Very competitive, very competitive. In fact, probably the youth team that I played on in 75% national youth football team had fellas like Bombo Nelson, Grim Lewis, Michael Bridgman, Patrick John, that's Premier, Two Gun King, Strong Bartholomew, Harold Flash Williams in the goal. That was the team. So most of these guys would have gone on to play a lot of years for the national team. You got idea what it was. And then in cricket, you had people like Kenny Austin, Curry, these guys. So it was very, very competitive. In fact, today when you look back, the guy just on some of these test teams, and so you see a lot of people in your area time. Like yesterday, I was telling somebody, Ali Telesford would have been a hero in one day. From the very first ball, he used to beat that ball. So it was competitive.
Well, it's interesting to know. Well, there's Edwin Sam, saying Ali, my childhood buddy from Maloney Street to Belmont. Yeah. Well, Edwin is somewhere in New Jersey.
Well, by the time I left Maloney Street. You came, but I used to live at the foot of Maloney Street. There, that's where I born and grew up.
Okay, but Ali, the important thing I want to drive home to is that I realized that speaking to many folks of your era, multi-sport, multi-discipline was almost a norm. How was it? I don't want to use the word easy or even difficult, but how was it accommodative for you folks to be involved in multi-sport competitively and still in academics?
I think everything had its time and its schedule. For example, the football team, the cricket team used to train from 1:30 to 2:30, and the football team from 2:30 to 3:30. And that's why I really made my name, because as the football coach, because I was the football coach in school under one Mr. Victor Loa, and because I was already playing for Autumns, and I would go down there and try to out the cricketers because I wasn't on the cricket team. And this gentleman passed a day and he said, "You on the school team?" I said, "No." He said, "Okay." In a few minutes after the principal called me, those days when the principal called you, start to shake because he didn't call you for anything with fun there. And he asked me why I'm not playing for the school team. I tell him I'm not that type of cricketer. He said he has other information. And really and truly, I only played 3 games against St. Paul's, against Police, and a parish match, and I got onto the national team. I actually played senior cricket before I played youth cricket, right? So it had time. Also in that era, for me, that season. So it wasn't like now where football or cricket seems to be playing whole year. You had seasons, so it was easy for you to play. And then it was after school. It's not like no, I went to coach presentation boys college some time ago. And when you ask the guys what day they could train, nobody could train because every day they had a class. So I think that was the difference where school was school and after school was to play. Now school goes on from 8 in the morning to somewhere around 8 in the night.
Yeah, and as Sam will say that during those times you didn't have the distraction of probably video games and other things like that, Ali.
Yeah, that's another one, of course, and the videos and the TV. You had one like a black and white TV somewhere in one house in the village.
Yeah, interesting enough. But Ali, so how then were you able after a while to stick or to narrow down your focus on probably just football and cricket?
But as I said, I think it's season. Because cricket was played at a particular season and football at a particular season. So it was easy to play both. It wasn't that difficult in that era time. But then I somewhere about in the late 80s, they brought in cricket in December. And then you had to choose between cricket and football. And that is where I didn't play much football, but I coach and I stayed playing cricket. I think people like Harold Flash Williams would have fallen in the same trap where you had to choose between cricket and football. But for a great part of that period of time, you could have played both of them without not being handballed.
Okay. You know, but you're talking Ali about representation, national representation, both sports. Yeah, there was a season, but was it confusing at times, especially during those years you talking about Windward Islands football, Windward Islands, cricket, traveling among the islands, these sort of things.
Yeah, well, it was strange because I remember when I went for I was captain of the Grenada youth cricket team and we went to St. Vincent. But I was on the youth football team, but also was Harold Williams, right? And on mornings, everybody was out playing cricket and both of us were playing football because at that time I never thought it serious cricket. So when the match day, I think against St. Lucia, I got 7 for something and then went on to make trials for the Windward and then make the Windward team. And up to that point, I didn't really have cricket as something serious. I just play cricket, right? And football was what I trained for. Train in the morning, train in the evening. I never really trained for cricket. I just go and play cricket until you start to get into the national team and you have to train on it. So I think the training there was holistic. You didn't do specific training for cricket or for football. You trained and you could have played cricket and football.
Yeah. Quite interesting indeed, Ali. And I assume that it was quite fun in those days.
Oh yeah, traveling in itself. You go to the islands. I play in the days at the Winston Davis and Lance John and these guys from St. Vincent. We still friends, very good friends. Dominica, Kentish, and Esprit, and these guys still very good friends. Lucia, in fact, Gail Francis is the deputy commissioner. No, he's a minister of security now in St. Lucia. And when I go there, I speak like an official because we play cricket together. It was really fun. And in those days, the cricket was 4 days there. 4 days cricket, Windward Island cricket. No, big cricket is playing 2 and 3 days. Windward Island cricket was 4 days.
Yeah, I realized because through your football, career as a coach traveling through the islands. I know most times you'll reconnect with folks when you visit, whether it's Dominica, St. Lucia. You'll remember some of those guys from back then, or even when you travel and say, hey, how is Ali Debellotte? You know, say, boy, we have known Ali from years back, you know. And I assume you're basically saying that these opportunities during those years created last long, friends, they, as you say, probably if Kentish visit Grenada, he can, look up for Ali. He'll remember Ali, these sort of things. Yeah, lifelong friends.
We do. And now with WhatsApp, a lot of us are on WhatsApp chatting with each other,
Right.
Yeah, very, very, very good friend.
Mm-hmm. But Ali, your actual playing days, let's look at probably cricket first, and then we go to football because we have a nice segue into coaching and things like that. So, but as a cricketer, playing, and Ali, it seems as Ali was the spinner, but how it was as a cricketer, representing Grenada and playing in Woodward Islands tournament.
Well, as I said, I never really took cricket serious. I only played 3 first-class games before I got onto the national team. I played national cricket before youth cricket. But I always look at myself as just a wicket taker, not a good bowler. I didn't really fear no batsman. It's fun for me to hold them, as you would have heard. And I turn the ball. In fact, people like Raw Lewis used to call Machine One because he never see people turn ball like that. So I turned the ball quite a bit. The 4 or 5 times I played in Dominica, I get more than 5 wickets in a evening. And locally, in fact, Bascom, I still have the record for the most wickets in a parish match, 8 for 36 against St. Patrick's. So on a weekend, I dominated the weekends for years, getting a lot of wickets. And it was just fun for me, really. I never thought of making the Windward senior team or West Indies team. Just go there, you bowl, you get your wickets, you go home, and that's where it ended.
Yeah, but the competitiveness, Ali. I mean, there was a competitiveness playing the sport.
Yeah, well, of course, he had some very, very good batsmen, and the pace bowlers. In my opinion, people like Rory Griffith and Piano and these guys, these fast bowlers today. I don't have the speed limit at them time, but I have a feeling they were faster than what I see now. And of course, no helmet and very thin pads and pieces of gloves in your hand, And the wickets, of course, now weeks before a match, they prepare a wicket. All wickets were prepared this Saturday morning. So yes, it was all that was part of the fun and the humor. Good batsmen, and it was a friendly thing, very, very friendly. You traveled throughout the island playing. You struggle to see a match somewhere in Grenada, but so you always meet the people, you always talk, you always intermingle, and that was the fun. In fact, I met a guy some time ago in the back, and I went to play in a place called Riverbank. Now, if you know Riverbank field is just a little bigger than a court. There is a court on it now, and I got 7 for 1 on that field. And I met a guy in the bank, and he's sitting in one end of the bank, and he reminded me that he was 197. That was the kind of fun. And even today, I went wrong. They literally went wrong the island, and everywhere somebody was calling me. And that comes just from traveling and playing the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I assume it was, and your good friend Toro Deputy is saying Ali used to chop now and again,
I didn't bowl it too draw. It's only when you bowl it too draw.
Yeah, but Ali, do you in to some extent still follow the cricket as how you follow football, which we'll talk about momentarily? Do you still follow cricket that much?
Well, Changing off, I follow cricket more than football. In fact, I hardly miss a game in Queens Park, whether on the 17, on the 50. Let me hear. Last weekend, Junior Murray, there was in the stand and he didn't see me. And he picked up his phone and he called me to find out where I am because I don't miss cricket in the park. For years, I don't miss cricket. I've not followed football as much in the recent time. I don't get tickets to go and see football. So I won't go. I'm not paying to go and see football. So since about 2012, I haven't seen a national match in Queens Park. That there were probably 2 or 3 games. There was some thing on it, but I don't go. So really, I follow cricket in the stadium a lot more. But they know there's not much cricket anywhere else. Whereas football, you go to any little ground and you still see football. Like last weekend I was in Spring, so I still go about watching the games, but I follow the national cricket a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And Ali, you do have some extra time because, as we should have indicated, that you have retired from the public service as a football coach, as a senior football coach in the ministry. Okay, so through that you find time to some extent to go and I assume you're basically just going and observe. You're going and watch as any other fan, any other person who who has an interest in sports.
Yeah, I do go to watch. I do go to watch in the stadium. But in the net, I still bowl. In fact, I was bowling yesterday to some youth, and all them. I think he said he's on the St. George's on the 19, and I was bowling to him. And I helped him about 3 or 4 times, and he sort of a mystery to see somebody bowling like I bowling, throwing the ball high up in the air and this sort of thing. So I still bowl. The problem is when I bowl, it takes me a few weeks to recover, but I still do bowl the ball. I tell Debellotte I still bowl the ball.
Okay. Well, just as a sidetrack, and Toro always trying to provoke something. He wants to know whether or not you still suffer. You're a sufferer like myself and Harold Paisley, and losing sleep watching West Indies playing, as he called it, 3rd Division international cricket. That I have to tell Toro that West Indies is on a high, and they're enjoying the best of what's available now. Okay, yeah, but
yeah, I do lose a lot of sleep. But generally I watch cricket, so not only West Indies, whoever played.
Yeah.
I like to see India playing also. Once India play, I'll be there. I don't like the Australians too much, but I do still follow. Yeah, definitely, I still lose sleep. Right?
Yeah, and following quite a lot of sports. And as you said, probably gone are the days of what we call the CSA. That's for those who knew CSA, where you could have go there and get involved in some of whether it's the table tennis, the badminton, and talk sports. You're just talking about sports.
Well, and of course the dominoes.
Well, yeah, the dominoes. Yeah. But Ali, you move into football, playing football, and then coaching as more or less the latter part. And when I say latter part, I mean more coaching than probably involvement in cricket after, because you coach not just local teams, but also the national senior teams for quite a bit. And even I think your last sojourn would be with the national women's, if I'm not mistaken. You also you
at the national level. Yeah.
At the national level. So how? I mean, you got involved in coaching, Ali.
Right. No. As I said, when trans unit started, I was senior person, and that would have been about 16, 17, and I was a coach. So literally from the time I started to play serious football, I was coaching. Then I was appointed coach on a school GBSS when I was in school, right? And then I coached Souls, which was a team in the 1st division, but there was no Premier League. And in fact, we placed 2nd in the GFA competition to 100 that year I coached. and I was still in school. So I actually play and coach my entire career until I went into point and I met other coaches and I just played. So that brought me. And then I went to the ministry and assisted. No, I was not working in the ministry. So there was a course since 1970 something in Mexico or early 80s, and I went. And so when I came back, Clarkson invited me to be on the staff. And so I joined the staff as an assistant coach and a trainer because I just came from Mexico. And it took me 10 years on the staff before I was appointed coach. Nowadays, fellas starting to coach before national team, before they coach a club team. But in our time, it's a long time. So that's why I stay coaching all the time. And then I coach a number of clubs in that period of time.
Mm-hmm. Was there you had a very close relationship with Ashley Ram Folks, related to some way or the other, Ali?
My uncle.
Oh, okay.
My mom brother.
Your mom brother, yeah, I wanted you to say
yeah,
it. Yeah. So and that go ahead.
And I said she was 90 a couple of days ago.
Oh wow, that's interesting enough. Well, long health.
Yeah,
for her, Ali. So some of the clubs that you have coached over the years, I think it was once Hard Rock. I think you would have been with the GBSS, yes, Eagles,
Rangers, Carnage, Fontenoy, Bellevue Rangers twice, Eagles, Hard Rock, in the early days, Latas. And that time I was living in St. George's and coaching Latas. And recently, St. John's Post. I coached St. John's Post last year in quality. So these are normal. In fact, I've coached in clubs in every parish except St. Mark.
Which would have been except Hurricane.
Except Hurricane.
Yeah, well, to an extent, because it's the main and dominant club in that parish,
Yeah.
But Ali, what it is about coaching that you enjoy? Because I mean, I believe you probably one person that would have coached more different, teams than any other of the local coaches. Most coaches would have stick with probably one or two for the most, but you, as you outlined, would have coached, numerous teams over the years. What it is about coaching that, you do enjoy?
It's just in you. You just go there. You have your work set out, your pattern. You go out there. And I think on average, I have not really coached. I can't recall, but it might be teams that after meeting them and a coach, they end up in a lower position than where I met them. So you always had that joy of success. I remember I coached Grenada Island school games for 15 years. So you meet a lot of the players from all around the island. So anywhere you go, you meet people that you know. And at the Grenada Island school games, I've won the tournament 10 times, 5 second place over 17 years. So people kind of feel confident when you come because you might have meet a schoolboy that is now on the club team. And so I never was pressured in any way going to coach a team. Never felt as if I was out of place, never felt unaccepted. You just get there, people accept you and you move on. And so I think all that led by coaching so many different teams.
Mm-hmm. And coaching itself, not just coaching the teams, but you also coaching at a development age, because as senior coach in the Ministry of Sports, you also took on the task of ensuring, schools football, for example, and having other coaches under your tutelage to ensure that the programs of the ministry, where it relates to football, is actually administered as well.
Yeah, in fact, I introduced women's football into the school football. I remember the first year we only had 5 teams, and I also brought along, I think it was were there at the time. I think it was Pula at the time as minister. And the guy that was on the Gold Cup team, I brought them in through the Mani program to assist me in the ministry. Quite fellas as Mark and Marcus and these guys came through. I kind of introduced that program. They're trying to do something similar now. So I brought in this team of young footballers so that they could develop themselves. Some of them has gone on to be coaches. So yes, and the youth level, I always, to be honest, prefer to coach the youth. I think you get more to them than senior players, but you just divert to do different things. But I pay a lot more attention to the youth. And then, as I said, you meet them at the secondary school level, so you're with them for a longer period of time than a national player that just pops up.
Yeah. It's understandably because, as you indicated, most of the players who, for some reason or the other, would have got onto the national team where you actually be coach, you would have known them since from school football. Playing in the intersecondary school football championships, and then they moved into club football, and then they move into the to the national setting. So you, as the coach, probably would have had that interaction with those players from since, as you indicated, from since school. So in terms of knowledge of players, I believe, and giving you that credit, is something where you probably had that vast experience and knowledge of players and players' development, because you can probably attest to knowing this player playing, whether it's for SAS or GBSS or PDC or whatever it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, about 3 years ago, one of the national teams that played, and I was on the outside listening to the lineup, and there were only 2 guys on the starting lineup that didn't play school football. Only 2. The entire squad literally is guys that went through secondary school football.
But Ali, as a former coach yourself, what would you give you in terms of an assessment of the sport football in Grenada? And in all fairness, yes, let's put the pandemic into context, what we have seen, and even so you can probably look at prior to the pandemic, and even now with what you are seeing, because as you say, in some cases there's still some level of football being played. I know the national team, for example, is getting ready to participate in the qualifying tournaments. But what is the state of play in terms of football and football development in Grenada, as Ali Debellotte, as a former national football coach?
All right, glad to say former national because I'm still coaching. But I think the standard of football is very, very low. But I don't think the FA is to be blamed, but I'm not too sure they're addressing the situation. And that has been happening for a while without being noticed, right? When I started in the coaching in the primary schools, you had the guys common entrance and school leaving guys playing. Right? In recent time, there's actually no football in the primary school. So a guy goes through primary school, he doesn't play. Gets to the secondary school and might play until Form 3. But there are national team at 15. So where does he play the football to get on the national team? It is debatable. He just probably plays in his village or so. The secondary school football once or 2 rounds with 8 or so teams. Now it's a zone of 4 and you're playing 1 round. So a guy might play 3 or 4 matches for his school in an entire season. So no primary school, very little school football. Now the FA is trying to have under 19 and this sort of thing. But that gap has gone for too long. So fellas didn't have that development. And as you know, they don't go to the pastures regularly. They don't play by the side of the road. They don't see no football on the beach. So we are not having that development of youth players. They just start to play and nearly start to play on a national team. When you ask them where they play, I remember when I had the secondary school team the first year, there were one Premier League player. No, they only resolves everybody playing Premier League football because that's where they actually started. And I think that has caused the football to deteriorate seriously. Coaching, again, is another serious issue, Bascom. You really had to know football to coach football in our time. And the veterans, the class, and them, you really had to hope that they leave before you get that chance. No, you see top teams and somebody with a team never play, never coach, but he called himself the coach, or they tell him go with the team, so he has to act as the coach. And so we're missing that developing stage of football. All right, and I think that has brought football to where it is. If you watch a local game, you're watching national. In fact, I think the last national team or one before, they said that there were only one local player starting. When we beat Jamaica and Trinidad and these teams, there were 2 or 3 overseas players. Well, you will know Bascom, 3, 4 overseas players. No, the entire squad is literally overseas. But yes, there are better players, we think so. But when you look at the local players, they really can't compete with these guys. And I think the reason for that is we don't have a proper development structure. We just get there at the foot and we jump on the top. And so we're missing it. You know, in schools now, they stop skip children because when you skip, they say you go lower than where you was. I think football is strictly skipping. So you don't really go. You get up, but you don't go.
But despite that, Ali, you're basically saying that we do have the talent. We do have the talent.
Yeah. It's like West Indies cricket. You see talent, but you ain't getting no results. I mean, now they win a few matches. I don't know if it's a corner they turn in, but some of these corners in West Indies cricket are so long that it never seems to finish. But you see talent at the level. I see a lot of very good young footballers. You know, you see something about them, but when they get to match and competition, I don't know if probably we don't have enough good players and too many teams. So we just have 1 or 2 good players on a team. That could be something to look at. And I said that again, the school system without development. So you see a fella could do not dribble as Barry or Fletcher or these guys or Bog, but you see people that has that sort of incline to get talented. But I guarantee you, Bascom, by next year, if so long, they out of football.
So there's a technical deficiency as well, Ali, in terms of football, technical, tactical. We're not playing, enough football in Grenada. I mean, what can you characterize as some of the deficiencies when it comes to football?
And I will tell you, even physical, that we seen at one time, well, you that travel with the team and know about the physical capabilities, right? So you have to ask yourself, but I'll just give an example where these things start to go wrong and we don't notice it. I went to coach at GBSS, not to coach, to give a team talk. It was around intercall. There were 18 players under 15 sitting in canteen playing field and I'm talking to them. And I say, how many are you all running in sport? And nobody put up their hand. No, how could a fella at that age or the school team is not an athlete? So even when he reached 17 or 18, you can't get it to be no top runner like Michael Pop Bridgman running down the wing or Barry or Whitaker. You're not seeing that, but you're seeing something to tell you that if he had worked hard, he could have get there. You know, and I think that is what seems to be the issue. Technically, again, fellas don't play. You know, the fellas used to go, you go into Antini. Sometimes you go into Antini and nobody. I mean, nobody in Antini. You will see some fellas in Queen's Park. So, fellas are not working. You know, they had a thing saying about the percentage of time you work with a ball. If you're giving grades and you go up, you start going up by the amount of touches. If you use that as an example, most Grenadians will fail because they hardly play with the ball.
Well, Ali, I recall, and probably just to add that because, I traveled with you for many years, and I recall there was a time, without calling name in terms of a player, you made a substitution and you gave a message to the player who's going on. And he went on to the field and said something completely different, And it was just an indication of players not even understanding, because you sent a message on to the rest of the team through this player who is coming on fresh, get himself on. And surprisingly, when there was something, and I think the captain came to the sideline and he said, "Well, I said such and such." He said, "Well, no, he said some, a different message altogether." And it's just an indication, Ali, of the understanding of the game, and sometimes what you have as national players. But there is a point there. Okay, yeah. I wanted to comment on that, but Torre is saying that Ali's most memorable, well, he says soccer, we say football run for him as a coach is when you led Grenada in the World Cup run that took the team to Columbus, Ohio. And there were more Grenadians at the game than Americans. Well, that is true to say, because I know Ali is something we will cherish for many years. And even not World Cup, Gold Cup campaign as well. But definitely that Ohio, Columbus, Ohio run.
I can tell you something about that team. It was a very good team with people like Jason Roberts, but the hype was so much when the team came to Grenada that Jason Roberts missed what looked like a fairly easy goal early in the game. And every time we happened to talk between us, he said that when he passed through any part of Grenada, somebody reminded him that he missed that goal. That's like 20 years now. So they tell you how the game was, such an interesting thing. And people never realize the importance and the level we played, because I think we were ranked 120 something down there, and America was ranked 11th.
Yeah.
And people were starting to predict 10 and 12 before the game, and we did extremely well. We lost 3-0 in the US, and 2 goals scored in extra time in the US match, 1 in half time and 1, and then we lost 3-2 in Grenada, and we lost 3-2 with 10 men. I think for me is one of the top teams and performances I had as a coach.
Mm-hmm. Along with, as you said, the hype and the public's, interest, participation, and support during those days. And as you said, you didn't have too many, foreign-based players. You had the Jason Roberts, etc. But you had these committed players, and you had a group of talented local players as well.
Yeah. Some of the last of the best, I think.
Yeah, I will say that. Let me go back to another of the comments there. I think it's Toro again is saying, he's saying, a few years ago, I was in Grenada and went to see a GFA game at Tantine. There were about 10 spectators, including Ali, myself, Archer, and 7 others, old-timers, as he call it. We spent more time talking than watching the game. Can't remember who played and what the final score was. I think I can relate to that type of that type of experience, and it happens probably. I assume Ali now more than ever. When you go around, you spend a lot of time, chatting with, as Toro will say, the old timers.
Yeah, but I still try to put myself where I wouldn't chat with them for too long, because I still like to watch the game. As I said, sometimes I see something in it that is quite amazing. In fact, I park my car and I'll sit in the car and watch the game in the park, because once you come out, people will talk about everything else, because the games nowadays really does not have interest. Basketball, and I think guys don't train. I think they don't train hard enough to get to that level to create that sort of excitement. The fellas could hardly control. I don't know when last I see a real good shot at the goal, like you have see the bomb, the two-gun kid. I wonder who kicking harder in these guys. Today, if you see a fella kicking a ball that they call hard, you wonder, I would have kicked harder than that in my time. So I think people don't train. So you're not getting that clinical performance when you come to see a game. I trained St. John's Sports last year, and very rare. I don't think for the entire 2 or 3 weeks before the game that we had the starting team, whole starting team to any session. And that you go throughout maybe a paradise, a hurricane, maybe with brother, and you're right there. But generally, in fact, even brother once was complaining that they lost the final. Imagine hurricane, and he was the coach, and he tell me he never feels so glad that they lose because they didn't come and trade. You see teams having final in a week, and the entire week the team not training, but they get ready for a final. So I think all these things put together, you don't expect to see clinical performances, and I think that's why the crowd doesn't really, you more go on a line than go to see football.
Mm-hmm. And you made a point, Ali, because as indicated, and speaking to some former players myself over the past few months during the program, otherwise, there appears to be a lack of seriousness sometimes on the part of players and to some extent some coaches, because as you indicated, there isn't.
I didn't get a last piece.
Yeah, yeah. You hear me there now, Ali? Yeah, are you there now? Let me see. Yeah, Ali, you there?
Right. Yeah. I hear you know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was saying, Ali, that some indication from speaking to some former players and coaches that the lack of commitment of players wanting to train, but in some instances just want to play. As you indicated, just before a game, and wondering why players are not training. They believe that they can just show up and play a game, and to some extent, Ali, it's affecting even the output of our in terms of a national team, because it means that players are not match ready, they're not fit, and having them on a national team just probably for a few weeks is not really enough, because they're not playing football to some extent competitively. They're not training as they should, and training means not just training with Ali, but also having some level of discipline in terms of training, what you eat, doing your own physical at times. Some people add their own gym schedule to their training. Taking the training seriously, and to some extent, Ali, it's affecting the output of our football in terms of at a national level.
Yeah, and let's say Point would have been training on the beach on morning in the park. You will see Rangers heading up Dabo. You'll see 100 heading up Cemetery Hill. You'll see people in the park 12 o'clock. Toro could tell me where Caranas used to train, because I know they always had this secret thing about them. So maybe you could tell me where they used to train. But you see people training. You see fellas running around the park for laps and sprints, and so not today. As they reach in the park, they take the ball and they start to play. And if you go to tell them to do any physical, you did something serious today. The mental thing. I think also, we had levels. You will hardly see a Premier League player in our time playing what you might call the local league or bush league, as people say. Today, people gives up the Premier League. A fella have a final or semi-final in Queen's Park, and he have one in some little ground, maybe could over some little place, and he goes there to play and doesn't show up for the one in Queen's Park, And so all these sort of things, and he might be the one reasonable good player on the team, and he chooses to do that. So you don't have much commitment at all by players. I don't know if maybe incentive is missing. I'm not too sure what, but the commitment is surely missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, probably Carnage ground was Old Trafford. You probably missed out that one, Ali. Old Trafford.
They had somewhere they used to go and train physically. Could be the steps, but they had somewhere they used to go.
Probably the steps on the spot. Toro added another comment there, a bit long, but Ali, it's important because I want you to comment on that. He said too many teams. You can be mediocre and get on a team. Long ago, you had to be good to replace a better player on an excellent team. Carnage in 1976 to 78 had 13 regulars with some good men on the bench dying to get a start. He says guys like Baker and Kong will tell you that it was so hard getting on Queen's Park Rangers that they were thinking of going to play for Carnage or some other team. And, you talk about the Medford, when he said Baker and Kong, he's actually referring to Medford. They were good. They were good players. They were good players. And if they could not have made the team, it will tell you, Ali, that it's because there were a lot of damn good players on Queen's Park Rangers.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. That the teams, it's quite a number of teams. Fellas not training, so there is not much competition. People don't try to outdo each other. They basically at the same level. Anybody could play. It doesn't matter who you saw or who you think. I know guys spend entire season on the bench. They were one of the goalkeepers. I'm not too sure if it's Jake or Kellon. Said that he spent 14 games on the bench before you get a chance. No, if you 1 or 2 games and they didn't play, you ain't coming back. This is not a thing. And again, the standard is, we're not trying to move up. We're very satisfied just around here, just in the middle, and everybody could get picked. Anybody could play. As you ain't get played, you're gone in another club. The number of clubs could be an issue now, with far less people seems to be playing.
Mm-hmm. The other thing he indicated was that Gavoski used to use some big stones in Tantine as his free weight for weightlifting, and every man had a skipping rope. Yeah, well, the skipping rope aspect of it, guys used to, as you say, on a morning you will see those guys, and I know that, from the River Road time, you'll see those guys on a morning going and run, and doing something on their own, even when there isn't training. Sometimes they used to have morning training, albeit Queen's Park Rangers, just about everyone living within their environs. So it was easy for the guys to come down, whether you're from Queen's Park area, the Dabo area, or any part of River Road, you can come down to Queen's Park early morning, as early as 5:30, 6 o'clock. They get up probably an hour or so of training, and I'm talking about training, not just small goal. In those days, those guys train.
That's all they do nowadays, Vasco. The good part now is anything video going now is small goal, not even small goal like one time where at least you're shooting. It's a real small goal. But the training aspect and not just people doing their own thing in this, like in the morning or in the afternoon. People used to be in Queen's Park 12 o'clock in the day. They come from work, take an hour from work to train to go back to work, As I talk about Javoski, I saw him about 2 days ago, and he called me. He said, Ali, what should I say you did first? Is it football or cricket? I tell him both. That's about a few days ago, maybe 4 or 5 days ago. Yeah, but these guys really used to train hard. You don't see that level of training anymore.
Mm-hmm. But looking forward, Ali, what is your honest assessment? I know I asked you that somewhere or the other before, but I'm asking you that looking forward now. And we're looking at post-pandemic, your honest assessment of football in Grenada, and especially our national senior team, which is actually in training. looking at what you're saying, I know there isn't lots of international football. And when I say international, in terms of competition being played, competitions rather. Yes, we do have the English Premier League, and some. Well, Europe has not really stopped football. They're playing a lot of football in Europe. But in terms of the Caribbean, not many of the friendlies in the Caribbean, etc., etc. What do you think, Ali, looking on at our team, and as a former national football coach, the future for football in Grenada first, and then looking at our national senior team?
Well, I think football always will be there. I'm not too sure it will generate crowds in a hurry, but football will always be there. I think we have to start raising the bar, the standard of football. If we want the crowds to come back, the standard has to live. And something has to be done to raise the standard. The national team, I saw them train. I watch them most evenings. I know the players. The Caribbean standard of football now is deteriorating, not just Grenada. I think the Caribbean. And so you always think that you have a chance, but I'm not too sure you'll go anywhere above that Caribbean. I mean, one time we were looking at possible getting into the World Cup, but I'm not too sure now that you're going to easily get above average, right, in the Caribbean football. It's not only Grenada. I think it was St. Vincent was a top team once. You watch Trinidad, you see guys still struggling. Everybody seems now to basing the strength on overseas players, most of the teams. I haven't seen the overseas players, so I think they'll be joining the team in El Salvador. So I can't tell what to expect. But the local team will have to play very well to beat the average team. I don't think it's quality players. It's not, players that, and then there's a lot of seems to be a lot of young new players. Well, the whole football is young, not just the coaches. Everybody seems to be young now in football. So, it's a lot to get them. The thing about it is that starting now might not be bad. The question is if they will continue. And the FA had to find some means a way of people staying a longer period of time. Because like you're wasting your resources. You get a guy at national team, you're training for 2 years straight, and then you see him and say, "What happened? You come here and going." I mean, I actually begging a guy who plays for come on, for the leading goal scorer in the cup, and he just ain't playing no national football. I done with that. And you're talking about a young fella, and that is the trend. Fellas not staying and hold on to clean. I'm not too sure if it's the incentive they're not getting. I don't know if it's just a mind concept. They feel like good and somebody had to come and ask them to play. Whatever it is, it's not working, and the FA has to do something to get people more involved and to get a higher standard of football. They are looking at things as mentor to go around to assist the coaches and to help, some of the ex senior coaches like Bowser, and then that might help, but I still think there has to be some incentive for people to
continue. Ali, as a former national coach, what was the process like in terms of the foreign based players? Was it a situation where as the coach has an input in identifying and selecting the foreign based players, or it was a situation where you were given the players and you need to, basically to work with them?
I'll give you a little history over that. Right? One of the first time we brought a foreign player, I think he came from Canada, and it was a disaster. Right? Nobody really knew him. I don't know how he got thing, and we sort of put him to play on the team, and really didn't know much about football. So the next set that came was people like Otis, Jason Uncle, and we were, nearly concerned what this guy could do. But to me, he is one of the best overseas players I saw. Otis, far better than anybody, and he sort of set the tone. And then we start bringing in the players. But it was always people who you could relate to by somebody in the country. You ask them to, I'm not sure what it does know, but you call the person, you talk to them, they say they see this guy, he looks well, he's Grenadian. We tell them have a look at him and so but sometimes I heard of teams where, people just show up, somebody say they have good player or there's a good player, they will send him and so I'm not too sure if that is a fact, but I find in recent times some of the overseas players are really not much different. The last game I saw on television in the past, there were one or two overseas players that look a level above all local players, but I'm not too sure that distance was that far. Whereas, all standard in the Tigges and the Steve Mark and the Pele Joseph was. So when Otis and them came, even though it was better, the distance wasn't that far and it was easy to cover it. I'm not too sure now what the overseas players
Probably
bring.
an exception is probably Aaron Pierre, the captain.
I haven't actually seen him play, but I understand he's a pretty good player. The last team had about two or three reasonably good, but I think what I'm saying, the distance between them and the local is much further than in the days of the Otis and the Jason and them, So I don't know how they will merge and to get that performance going, but Antigua, the zone is not a very strong, difficult zone. Of course, El Salvador should be something. But the other teams, I think, is teams that are good playing Grenada team could beat, and move from there. We move on.
Okay, Ali. Well, what a way we can end in terms of your a nice segue in terms of your assessment of the as a former cricketer yourself. Let's give something to Toro that you might want to think about. I know despite what he's writing and posting, he follows West Indies cricket. The ongoing series with West Indies and Sri Lanka, getting ready for the Test series. Ali, as you say, it appears to be a turning a corner that the West Indies is turning. Although you believe that sometimes the corners are very long, the long corner. But what you have seen in recent times, starting with the tours of England and New Zealand, Bangladesh, and now home. And as the president indicated on the weekend on this program, quite a lot of cricket in store in the next few months. Between now and the end of the year, we have South Africa, we have Australia, we have Pakistan, and even early 2022, there's England, all of that in the Caribbean. So a lot of cricket in store. And in addition to that, Ali, so many players vying for selection now, more than ever. What's going on with West Indies cricket, Ali?
Well, I think, like I said, I give West Indies cricket. I support them, I watch them play. Well, I was not a real fan of West Indies cricket, but I'm West Indian. So I watch them and try to, hope that, and especially in recent time, we have a Grenadian or somebody around that on the team. But I want to give the West Indies cricket, a lot of credit for the effort in trying to develop West Indies cricket. There are some guys here that you see going to practice every day. I think they get a reasonable salary, and that is in every island. So fellas are playing cricket and training. We have Cyril Cox as the trainer for the team. These guys, Junior Murray and a few other local coaches with their foreign coach, I think a Jamaican. But every day these guys are Queen's Park, and that happens in every island. So obviously, fellas are now motivated. There is an incentive, and of course, there is a full-time occupation. I don't know if football could do it. We have a lot of money in football. I'm not too sure if that would be done. But that method seems to be paying off. Also, one of the things the West Indies Cricket Board has done, especially to this president, is to try to incorporate some of the old players. For some time, they were eliminated from West Indies cricket. And so you create a vacuum. Now they're trying to close it up by bringing in some of these people to work with some of the teams. And I think football should really take a page from cricket. You have to create incentives and you have to have a long-term training program. Long gone the days when you just show up 3 weeks before a tournament and start to train and expect to beat people. All right. And so that is why I think West Indies cricket is doing what they're doing. And really, you see some very, very good talented players in West Indies cricket now, especially some of the batsmen. The question is, being West Indian, how long they going to keep working hard at the game? Because I see some in Grenada that gets onto teams and before it's done twice, you don't see them training anymore. So it's how long they were able to do it. The tour, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and West Indies is not two teams. They don't beat anybody when they go on tour that easy. Something about them. So I'm not expecting so much from Sri Lanka. Maybe one wicket spin a lot and they out West Indies cheap. But I expect West Indies to beat them in all formats of the game.
Mm-hmm. But as a former spinner yourself, Ali, you think West Indies has a deficiency in terms of mastering spin?
Both bowling and playing it. And I think I went and watched a under 17 match a couple years ago. As usual, I think it was myself and about 3 people from Carriacou. There was somebody from Carriacou on the team. And there were 4 or 5 of us in the stand. And the president of the Grenada cricket was fasting and I said that all slow bowlers are turning the ball, but they're not spinning the ball. He said, hold it. He said the West Indies cricket board had something, and that is what they said. And I asked, what are you all doing about that? That was about 4 or 5 years ago. I think spin, some of the top bowlers in the world is the spinners. If you take 10 bowlers, you're against 5 or 6 spinners, maybe more. So the question is, what are we doing to master spin? At my age, I go in the nets and still old people there on Grenada youth team and this sort of thing with ease. The question is, what are we doing to get people to learn to spin? I'm not sure what they're doing in the other islands, but clearly at the West Indies level, if we don't have bowlers bowling spin, batsmen will not learn to play spin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seems as if that is a deficiency, and Turo is saying that he's recording your remarks about West Indies cricket. West Indies always had talent. Is their head that in so right?
Turo know that once the guys on the field, but the late Cockrell and them, I think Toro used to be there with the big pants trying not to get out with the big pants like they shot me or something with. And I used to spin them out in wind ball. I think that time I could have thrown, so I used to really work magical them in front of the panels. I think he used to be there.
But overall, Ali, you believe and looking at what we have in front of us in terms of talents, and as indicated, so many players are now making themselves available more than ever. Despite, I don't know if it's because of COVID that would have restricted some of them in terms of traveling and going, to some of the foreign leagues, but probably first time in a very long time. We have so many of these players making themselves available, except for the few who, for some reason, the other personal reason has indicated that they're trying to be on West Indies team.
Yeah, but I think also it's because as I said, the training process, because the money the guys get in are fairly reasonable, right? And they could live on that. No, a lot of the guys would try to get into a tour to one of the foreign leagues to make. But for the entire year, if you make it, you might come close to what you're going to get. So you don't need to go. I think that's one. And the second one to that, I think that they see our future. They see, people like to think that if we could win, I would come and play for you. And I think that was one of the issues with the Bangladesh tour. I think some of the guys just figure they won't go to win, and they choose not to go rather than the virus and sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I believe that. But now that now that they realize that we have a chance, everybody's back because they think we have a chance. 2020 squad with Pollard and Bravo and Poran. They think they have a chance to win the World Cup. No way. The World Cup money that you will get will be a lot more than you're going in these places that play. So I think that's what making people galvanize back to the team. Big chances that they think they figure they have a chance of winning at that level.
Mm-hmm.
But the president made a very important statement when he said that because I listened to that program. The real test for West Indies would be the teams coming down a little later in the year, and not. This is like a warm-up course, really. I think the ones coming up a bit later, that will be the real test to see if we are moving up or we were just beating a team that we should have beat anyhow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought so too. It was an honest assessment. South Africa and Australia and Pakistan, those teams are higher ranked than West Indies, and no doubt beating them competitively, playing competitively, will show what West Indies really about.
Tell Toro that is like point beating Karanaj. That was
nothing. But Ali, the change of captaincy, you think it's warranted? Craig over Jason Holder, Craig Baffert over Jason Holder.
For me, it is a kind of ticklish decision, I think I follow Fazé and these guys, and I think they have a point. Is that you had a captain that you didn't have a problem with. However, if he said that he's tired, because you remember, he would have lost a lot of games. And the West Indies were always under pressure, and he don't seem that he could have walked away out. So when you look at all of that, I don't think it's unrealistic or it's a bad decision to change him. Because I think now the team seems to be playing. You're not too sure if he comes back how he will fit in. So if they didn't change it, I wouldn't have been worried. And they change it, I think I'll go along with it. So I don't think it's really a bad move, really, Andrew.
Okay. All right, Ali. Well, finally, I want to, for those who joined us late, I want you to, I know we exceeded our hour, but Trans Unit, Ali, somehow that T-shirt, jersey, it's looking fairly new. I mean, and for all these years, Ali, tell us something about Trans Unit, for those who join us late, Trans Unit, and particularly that T-shirt that you're sporting, because, I mean, Ali, you're talking about back in the 70s?
Yeah, well, what happened, as you know, a lot of guys have migrated, and the bulk of Trans Unit men lives in New York or in the States. And every year they have the fundraising activities to help the local team, they call it Trans Unit, but most of them play with Springs, but they try to help and they're now involved in raising funds and sending donations to schools and things. So every year they produce jerseys still carrying the logo Trans Unit, and so this one is a very recent one. It's not the one I played with in the set.
Interesting enough. And our final comment is that I know you'll laugh at this one. Edwin is saying, let me know when Toro will be in the hot seat as a guest. It will be an interesting program. Yeah, somehow our good friend Toro will be in the hot seat. I know. We have been talking West Indies cricket, Carnage, name it. But talking about Carnage, I don't know if you listened to Jason Piper, Santa Claus on his program, and it's refreshing to know, Ali, that there's some moves to get Carnage. Well, they started get Carnage back functioning as what we knew Carnage was back then.
Well, we're very, very good friends, and he actually asked me to come and have a couple sessions with them and so forth till they get a coach or something. So I might be around them. You never could tell.
Okay, that's good. And Sam Toro is saying that when he goes in the hot seat, you have to be there. We're only talking about the cheerleaders at Old Trafford. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll have to talk a lot because come to think about it, Ali, and even in my time, which was probably the latter years of what was Old Trafford. Old Trafford was a place for real sports, I mean, real footballers, learn to play football and play football in Old Trafford, and
Top
somehow,
footballers.
yeah, and somehow,
Neutral movement, balloons, and these teams are top footballers, man.
yeah, and somehow there's something must be done to maintain and preserve that legacy of Old Trafford. Even as schoolboys at the GBSS, Old Trafford was your substitute ground.
Yeah, that's where we play tiny mites.
Right. Yeah.
Tiny
Yeah,
mites.
the younger guys, you go and play there,
Right.
before you could go on to Tan team.
On 20 before you go on the big field, yeah.
Before you go on the big field, yeah. So thank you very much, Ali. It's refreshing to hear from you and to hear your insights. As this program is such that it's never one stop. There's always an opportunity to come back at some other time to assess, to reassess, to discuss further. Whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours, we always find the time is a bit short, but I thank you for being part of the program, and wish you all the best, Ali.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay then. Thanks very much. Yeah, folks. That's Ali Debellotte, live from Grenada, somewhere I believe in St. Patrick. Ali giving us an insight into his thinking. Ali has been involved in sports for a number of years, a lot of years. As I said, sports synonymous with Ali Debellotte. Is everything about Ali is about sports. Sometimes you wonder these guys how they juggle between family, because they give so much to sports. They spend so many of their time outside involved in sports, and you're wondering about family commitments and these sort of things, and it's just all about it just to sports, and many times they can tell you that voluntary, because I would know of folks like Ali and those guys traveling with teams, and at the end having to even use their personal money to do certain things, and they do it without much of a fuss. If they get refunded, they get refunded. Sometimes they don't, and it don't bother. It's just a matter of the commitment, um, you know, to see things done. So I want to thank Ali for being on our program. Let's see. Hopefully on. Yes, thank you, Rudion, in Toronto, somewhere in Canada. Hopefully on Saturday, we should have a regional sports administrator, Kathy Happer Hall. Kathy Happer Hall has been involved in boxing, netball, track and field, senior games, whatever. And Kathy's in her 80s, but she's still involved. And somehow, not so much in the front line, but, providing advice, etc., and being part of the process. And, Kathy Happer Hall hopefully will be joining us on Saturday, 1 o'clock. We'll be talking a lot about sports in the Caribbean, whether it's netball, development, administration, because as a former administrator herself, she'll have a lot of talk about in terms of sports administration and sports administrators in the region. That's the level of commitment and thing that Kathy have given over the years. Thank you once again to Toro and Edwin and Rudian and all the others. Thank you for being part of the program. Mickey St. John and others, I want to thank you. And the invitation is to join us on Saturday from 1 o'clock. And we look forward to another program. And just a footnote as well to let you know that just as how we had Ali Debellotte, there's a name, Ray Duncan. And Ray is expected to be on our program in the future. I spoke to Ray, that's Ray Duncan, and quite a lot of things happening behind the scenes. And we'll hear from Ray Duncan. He's a coach himself, but quiet indeed. very conservative. He has been doing quite a lot in the background, and we'll be talking to Ray Duncan from St. David in the future. Once again, thank you very much for being part of the program, and don't forget to join us at 1 o'clock on Saturday for the Saturday Sports Special. Until then, take care.